It's been 70 years, the anniversary of the Exodus 1947 ship, the ship that was leaving to try, led by the Haganah, to try and get thousands, more than 4,500 Holocaust survivors, men, women, and children, to immigrate illegally to what was then British-controlled Palestine. That ship was intercepted by the British Navy near Haifa. Eventually, those more than 4,000 passengers were turned back, and they had to leave elsewhere, and most of them ended up in displaced persons camps in Germany. Now, the scandal there, the public relations nightmare for Britain, led to international support for the creation of a Jewish state, eventually led perhaps the biggest piece of post-Holocaust story that led to the creation of Israel. Joining me now from Haifa is Mike Wagenheim. Mike, tell me the significance of this anniversary. There's only 1 or 2 survivors left who was on the Exodus ship, but this significance of what happened 70 years ago in leading perhaps to the state of Israel.
A monumentally significant event. Well, I'm telling you, just get a visual here of Haifa port behind us. This is where the Exodus was pulled into after it was beaten and battered, along with the passengers themselves, by the British on its way here into Eretz Yisrael, Palestine at the time. The event was significant. It was called the ship that launched a nation. At the time, Palestine was under the control of the British by way of the United Nations. The UN was trying to decide what to do with this land of Palestine. Would it remain under the auspices of the UN? Would it be divided up into other territory? At the time, there was a plan in the works, possibly, to partition the land between a Jewish and an Arab state. Now, what had happened was the UN really wasn't giving much credence to that plan, but when they saw the images of the Exodus, when they heard what was going on, when they got eyewitness testimony, the UN, the people working on the Palestine issue, changed their minds, and they started supporting the partition plan, which just a year later, less than a year later, would lead to the birth of the State of Israel. Monumental significance in the Exodus.
There were 3 separate Exodus ships. I was on the ship called Empire River. We thought they were going to take us to Cyprus, but after a few days of sailing, we realized we hadn't arrived at Cyprus. We had no idea where we were. In the end, they told us that they were taking us to France, to Port de Bouc. There, the French forced us to stay on the boat and refused to force us off the boat. We stood on the port in the 3 lines, in hot weather and in bad conditions. The French did not give in. They would not let the British unload us. Then the British decided to take us back to Germany, to a concentration camp.
Back now with Mike live in Haifa. Mike, why do you think this story, the story of the Exodus, continues to resonate so many decades later?
70 years after the fact, Jeff, we're here at a ceremony today in Haifa. Government officials were here. A new sculpture was unveiled right outside of the port, donated by the Jewish American Historical Preservation Society. This still goes on because the Exodus seems to be the tale of the Jewish people themselves. Forced exile, hardships, faith through the darkest of circumstances. The whole story of the Jewish people seems to be wrapped up in this ship, and the whole story of the country seems to be wrapped up in the voyage of the Exodus and it being turned back. It really is a phenomenal tale, and I think that's why even all these decades later and probably well into the future, it's still going to resonate not only here with Israelis, but the friends of Israel around the world.
All right, Mike Wagenheim reporting live for us in Haifa on the anniversary, the commemoration of the 70th years have gone by since the Exodus ship was first turned back from what would then later become Israeli waters. Thank you, Mike, for your reporting live from the commemoration. More news ahead on Daily Dose. Still to come. We move to Hollywood with the latest from movies, music, and culture. So make sure you stick around for that. And a slice of Tel Aviv nightlife in your living room. Israeli singer Nama performs a hit off her new album.